The Browns want to bring Nick Chubb back, and they are trying hard to bring Nick back. I know this, okay? I also know the Bears, now they're going to make it public, and they're going to go after him. They're beating down the door. I mean, if you got Louis Riddick saying that, that means that somebody is telling them, hey, we want him really bad. And
so why are the Browns not doing that? Do they just not want Nick Chubb in that room? They want the rookies, young guys to get the carries?
I wonder. Now, this is my theory. I don't know. I wonder if Nick sees the draft, because the Browns have to protect themselves.
But did them taking the 2 rookies make it easy for Nick Chubb to go elsewhere?
It might have, but again, they have.
So they kind of, if they really wanted Chubb, they shot themselves in the foot.
But if they
trying to get him.
But if they were going to bring Nick back, how long are they bringing Nick back for? I mean, these are 2 running backs that could play the next 4 years for you. You're hoping. Nick's a year-to-year basis now.
Mm-hmm.
After the foot injury last year, let's call it what it is. The Browns are serious about bringing him back. The Bears are very serious about bringing him in, and are trying to make this push to bring him in. It's just going to depend on what's willing to offer more. I don't think if Nick were to take the offer to Chicago, he's always going to be beloved here. I think that everybody would love him to finish his career in Cleveland, but I still don't think a year in Chicago or 2 years in Chicago is going to change how he's seen by Browns fans or even by the organization long term.
Here's something you maybe haven't ever said before. The Bears are just a few minor tweaks away from being complete. Now, obviously, we need to see it all in action before we can say that for sure. But as we look at the composition of this team, from top down to bottom up, from the toes to the top of the helmet, from the management to the coaching staff to the players, we might be teetering on having constructed a complete team almost. So let's talk about some of those almost.
Yeah. I feel like every offseason we talk ourselves into the Bears only being a couple pieces away, and then it just gloriously falls apart. Last year I was like, oh, the offensive line, maybe they won't be that bad, and Caleb is a rookie, but he'll figure it out. And then it was, Caleb had his ups and downs, and had issues that he was working through, but the offensive line was way worse than anybody imagined, especially once the injuries started piling up. So you're never, I think, 1 or 2 pieces away, because it's such a violent game and you rotate players so often that you just don't know what's going to happen. And the Bears had a great offseason. They addressed a lot of issues. There's still things left on the table. Like we heard from I think it was
92.3, the fan in Cleveland, the Kevin Carmen show with Anthony Lima.
Okay, so yeah, that show, 92.3 The Fan, they're talking about Nick Chubb and how the Bears have interest in him. And running back was one of those positions that we thought the Bears might have a shot at Ashton Genty at 6. Sounds like they wanted Travion Henderson at 39 or 41. Maybe they wanted Cam Scatteraboo in the 70s. It just never worked out, and they ended up with Kyle Monangai in the 7th round. So now the rumor mill is churning of, are they going to add another veteran running back? So that's one of those pieces that they're still rumored to be involved with. And you heard Nick Chubb there as one of the guys that could potentially be a fit for the Bears. The Browns drafted 2 running backs, one of them pretty high, Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State, I think at 41. And then I think they drafted Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee somewhere later on. So they've drafted 2 running backs, and Nick Chubb is 30 years old, coming off another season-ending injury. They just extended Jerome Ford, who's their other back. So are they going to sign Nick Chubb to a deal? Then you have 4 running backs that do you really need that? Especially how much Chubb might cost, right? His veteran minimum, and he's kind of a beloved player there. It might make sense for a clean break. So that was one of the rumors that was going around.
Can I ask you a question about Nick Chubb? Sorry. So it seems like they want something to complement Swift, right? That's kind of the vibe.
Yep.
Does the prototype of Chubb then fit kind of what or like, does Chubb fit the prototype of what we need of like a power person?
That's a great question. So Chubb is one of the few, when he was healthy, one of the few like workhorse running backs that like they would ask to do kind of it all. He was like your Saquon type, your Josh Jacobs type, like the guy that's just on the field all the time.
Right.
Whether it's in third downs, early downs, he just comes out when you need a spell. He's great at the short yardage. He's a power runner too. So I think he could have complemented Swift. Actually, they were teammates at the University of Georgia together. They got drafted in the same year. So they played together on the same backfield before. So I think if you brought in Nick Chubb, you'd probably have space for a DeAndre Swift. Who it would really kind of hurt is Roschon Johnson, who's more of your power in between the tackles kind of running back. And if you brought Chubb in, you'd still probably rotate Swift and Kyle to like keep him fresh because he's 30 years old coming off an injury. He can't handle 20 carries a game anymore, right? But if you got him maybe that 8 to 9 carries a game, touches a game, maybe that's where he's the most effective. And Swift would still be in there. Now, another name that's been thrown around is J.K. Dobbins, the former Charger. He's finding himself to be the odd man out in Los Angeles because they signed Najee Harris in the offseason, who used to play for the Steelers. And he's kind of like that power back guy. And then Omarion Hampton, who they drafted out of North Carolina. Now, it seems a little redundant because Hampton is supposed to be like Adrian Peterson light is like what his comp is, NFL comp, who's also a power running back. So, I mean, Jim Harbaugh just wants to like run it down your throat, right?
Yeah.
And so I think Dobbins is probably the odd man out there. Now, a lot of people are saying he's probably a better overall fit for what Ryan Poles wants and Ben Johnson want to do because, first of all, he's younger. He's 4 years younger than Nick Chubb. Yes, he also, just like Chubb, he had major injuries, torn Achilles, but he was fully healthy last year, had almost 1,000 yards, stayed healthy, which is the big one. So I think he could offer a little bit more upside than Chubb could. So he could be in play there. The thing is, though, I think if they sign Dobbins, he fits maybe a little bit more of a similar role to what Swift can do. And so I think if you sign Dobbins, you might be looking to move Swift because they're a little bit similar. I don't think you want to give Dobbins that many touches either, just like Chubb, but he can probably handle more of them. And he does a little bit more of what Swift does. And then Johnson and Kyle would complement his running style.
Are you sold on the idea of Swift with compliments, or like if they signed Dobbins and traded him? I mean, like, are you where you kind of lie with keeping him or moving him?
I mean, Swift has up and down season. I don't think like he didn't get a lot of protection, so it's tough. But I think he's just a guy, honestly. Will Dobbins be better? I'm not 100% sure. The one thing that you can count on, Swift did play. He didn't miss a ton of games last year, at least I don't think. Maybe missed like 3 or 4. Dobbins, who knows? He came back, he was healthy. Can he stay healthy? That's the big thing. I think it's kind of lateral, to be honest, going from Swift to Dobbins. I think you probably can do some veteran minimum stuff. Neither of these guys is going to be your long-term answer. And then you need to draft like a running back high if Kyle is not really the guy. He's a 7th round pick, so we should really taper our expectations around that.
What's the flaw in Swift's game, would you say, that maybe keeps him from becoming like the guy for us?
He's not a big dude. He's not a power back. He can't really generate tough yards in between the tackles. He seems to fall down a lot when it's like 3rd and 1, right?
I see.
His vision isn't the best either, at least from what I've seen. So he really does need elite blocking to get out of the first level, right? Once he gets out of the first level, he's good in space and he can make some linebackers and some safeties miss. It's just getting past the defensive line and finding that hole has been a problem for him.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So,
interesting. Yeah, he said
yep.
I mean, yeah, his numbers pretty identical from like I think this past season to the season before.
Yep.
Interesting weapon Yeah, I just wonder, utilized correctly. But yeah, I can see, you still want a dude who can kind of bully people.
Speaking of bully people, another name that's been thrown around is Jamal Williams, who's a free agent. Now he's on the older side too. He's going to be 30, but he had 1 year with Ben Johnson and he like went nuts. He scored 17 touchdowns with him in Detroit, and then signed with New Orleans and hasn't done anything there, right? So maybe if like Ben Johnson's like, hey, I know the secret sauce for this guy, bring him in, right? He's a power guy. He can get those tough yards. He's, got a lot of personality too. If you ever heard him speak,
Yeah.
I think he's a good locker room dude. So he's somebody that's still out there. He was a cap casualty in New Orleans. So I've heard his name linked. Another name that I heard linked is Kenneth Walker, who is not a free agent. He's actually on the Seahawks. So he would cost some draft capital to get, but he was a 2nd-round pick. He has missed 8 games over the past 2 years, but I feel like in like running back land, that's like kind of bound to happen at this point. You're not going to get somebody that like just plays all the time anymore. But the Seahawks, they have Zachary Charbonnet from UCLA, who they drafted, and then Kenny McIntosh, they drafted from Michigan State, and they just drafted another running back, Damian Martinez from the U, which is one of the players I actually had mocked in one of our drafts for the Bears. So I don't know. Walker's got some tread on the tires. He's missed some games. Charbonnet basically has a similar skill set to Kenneth Walker, and so maybe Poles can get him. He's on the last year of his deal. Maybe you get him to kind of complement Swift a little bit. I think that would actually be a pretty good 1-2 punch, Walker and Swift. So that could be a play too that I've heard rumored, but everybody's got rumors these days, so who knows how much of it's true. But or they could do nothing, right? I mean, they've got 4 or they got 5 right now. Because I forgot about Ian Wheeler, who, if you remember Hard Knocks, he was kind of a darling on Hard Knocks, but then he tore his ACL and he was out for the whole year, right? But he was cooking on the preseason game that he was in. I mean, you don't know what you have with him, right? So like he could be that power back because he's got some burst and he's got, he's kind of built low to the ground and could be that guy too. So with Swift, Roshan, Homer, Wheeler, Kyle Monangai, it's a pretty crowded room right now. I think Swift is a lock to make the team. I think Roshan's a lock to make the team. And then after that, I think it's kind of up in the air. Homer was a Shane Waldron guy from his days in Seattle. That's why he was kind of brought in. He was hurt, but he plays special teams. I don't know. Wheeler was hurt. We don't know if the staff likes him or will play with him or not, play him or not. And then Kyle's a 7th-round pick. So his odds of making the team are kind of small to begin with, but I can see them adding another body, especially for training camp.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are progressing.
So if they don't sign, any of these free agents that you brought up, or, just somebody, do you think do you consider it like a dire need that they really should think about signing one of these guys?
No, because right now we don't know, like Ben Johnson, we're kind of trusting him.
Yeah.
And if Ben Johnson is like, I can make this work, then let's see if he can make it work, right? We know we saw what these guys can do with Eberflus and Shane Waldron and Thomas Brown, which is like, it's hard to evaluate because it was just so bad at times, right?
Yeah.
So if Ben Johnson is telling Poles, let me try with this group, then I'm gonna be like, all right, let's see what he can do with this group.
It is interesting that you kind of don't know what you have in some respects with the newness of everything. And yeah, I could see not making a drastic move because you kind of upgraded significantly at the O-line, and now you have a guy creating an offense. And
it's like if a chef was like, going through your kitchen and like made a meal, and you're like, oh man, this meal sucks. And then like they brought a new chef in, and you're like, do we need to go buy new groceries? And the chef's like, nah, I can do something with what you have in the pantry. And you're just like, okay, maybe it wasn't, maybe the chef was bad. Maybe the groceries are fine, right? You don't know. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can cook.
There's these YouTube videos of this son. I think his father is some famous chef, but he'll like takes like a piece of chicken and be like, make this chicken gourmet or make this like Ice Cube Gourmet, and then that man just does amazing. He just like cuts it, slices it smoothly into this beautiful piece of ice. So like, yeah, I guess that's what we're asking Ben Johnson to do, is to turn this
Just to fillet it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the running back. So some room for improvement, maybe not a dire need of an upgrade. We had talked, or you had said last week that you think that there's still defensive end opportunities.
Yeah, I think they still need an end. I don't know. I mean, they cut DeMarcus Walker, which I still think was a mistake. And they drafted the kid from the Colts, which is fine, but he seems to be like what they're hinging their success of the other edge on at the moment.
You talking about Dio?
Yes. It seems to be what they're hinging success on that. They don't really have another person there. They drafted Shamar Turner, who I don't know where he's gonna line up. Maybe he'll play end. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll move Dexter end. I'm not 100% sure who's gonna take ownership of that other edge spot, but I mean, I don't know. DeMarcus Walker is still available, so I was like upset that they cut him, but nobody else has signed him yet. So maybe he's not as good as I thought he was, or I guess, I mean, I never thought he was like amazing, but he's just a solid rotational player, and it would be nice to have somebody that you can be like, all right, well, Walker's there, on the other side, and he's played that before. But other than that, it's kind of looking a little slim. They got Jonathan Bullard, William Golston, Brett Urban. Like, these are also just kind of like guys that kind of fit the DeMarcus Walker mold. And so I think if the Bears cut ties with Walker, I don't see them bringing any of those other guys in. So I think they're just kind of roll with what they have.
Yeah.
At least for right now. Now, these teams, they all have way too many players, right, on their teams right now. And then once camp cuts start happening, there's going to be some pretty good players available on the market just because it's a numbers game. And so I'm sure Poles and Ben Johnson are kind of waiting to see who kind of gets let go, who's a cap casualty, that otherwise like wouldn't have been, right? Because they're a good player, but the numbers just didn't work, that sort of thing. So I think they'll hopefully look to add another edge, but I could see them kind of just going in and seeing what Dio can do and drafting one next year if some of their young guys don't pan out. Because they still do have Austin Booker, actually. I forgot about him. He's a second-year player. Kind of disappeared at times last year. I'm sure they're hoping he takes a big step this year, too.
Yeah. That's another one. You don't know how this guy in this new system, or with new coach and all that, will operate. And you do bring up a good point. There's cuts, there's always time, there's trades, all that stuff. And okay, cool. And then what is it, like safety kind of floating around as potential?
Yeah. So in the mocks I had, I did have the Bears taking a safety, Watts or Moore, somewhere in there. And it's not a dire need. It's just because, last year they had to play. Brisker was out with 9 games, right, with concussions. And concussions is one of those things that's kind of scary. And you get another one, and now it's like, okay, the last one put him out for 9 games. I think each one gets perpetually worse, right? So how long will this take him out for? He needs to seriously consider his long-term health, right? And so do you have somebody behind him that you feel comfortable putting in? And that's why I thought a rookie would be good for that role, because there are some veteran safeties out on the market, but like, you sign a veteran safety, are you really going to start them over Brisker? Like somebody like Justin Simmons or Marcus Williams or Jordan Poyer, they're veteran safeties that are out on the market, but like, safety is not really a rotational position, like a defensive end or, defensive tackle. Those guys are on the field. And so are you going to play him over Brisker? If not, are you going to bench Brisker? Like, do those guys have special teams value? I don't know. Does it make sense to spend money on a player that might not play all that much? That's why a guy like Deshaun Gibson makes sense for me from the Niners. I think he'd be cheap, probably about less than $2 million a year, something like that. And he does play special teams, right? And he's played safety before. So somebody like that would make sense, right? Because you can dress him on game day. He can be your backup safety, but then he can just, play special teams as well. Whereas some of these like Simmons and Williams and Poyer probably not playing special teams. So something else to keep an eye on.
Interesting. Okay. So as we close out today's episode, running back seems like maybe of the list of things, if they were, that's kind of top priority-ish, I guess, would be top, maybe top place where movement may happen.
I would say top place where movement may happen. I think end is still a top priority.
Right.
But I don't see options out there that Poles would jump at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So then we got that, and then defensive end and safety, as we trickle down the line.
I just thought of something.
Yeah.
We did get called out by Neil. Shout out Neil for
Neil.
not recognizing Seth Rollins's awesome introduction to the Bears pick during the NFL draft, which was pretty epic. And yeah, so shout out to Seth Rollins. That was pretty awesome. I think we should do the audio. Maybe we'll try to find the audio next week, play it for you guys, because that was pretty awesome. I'm sure everybody that listens to this podcast, all 12 of you, have heard that. I've heard that opening.
I can grab it real quick, and we can close out on the Seth Rollins Bears
All right,
draft.
while you're pulling that up, there's rumor that Joe Thuney is signing a 2-year extension. I haven't seen it officially anywhere yet, but there's people that are reporting that it's happening. I don't know if he's got 1 year left on his deal, so I don't know if it's 2 years after that 1 year deal or what, if it's 2 years including that, and so like it's another year after that. I'm not 100% sure what the details are, but it looks like Joe Thuney's going to be here for a little bit.
For Samir Patel, I'm Chirag Rathod. We are the Bears in the neighborhood, and we will catch you all next week.
Green Bay, Wisconsin! Is that all you got? Come on, you can be louder than that! I know y'all mad because championship gold looks good on the blue and orange. But in all seriousness, Green Bay, we are in the shadow of Lambeau Field. And I love Lambeau Field because the king of the North, the best quarterback in the NFC North, Caleb Williams, is undefeated at Lambeau Field. And in case y'all aren't familiar with my game, let me remind you, I am a visionary. I am a revolutionary. I am Seth freaking Rollins. And I am here to tell you that with the 56th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the greatest franchise in the NFL, the Chicago Bears, select Ozzie Tropillo, tackle from Boston College. Let's burn it down and bear down Chicago. Green.
Oh man, so epic.
Peace, friends.